Hi everybody, this is the Baseball HUD, the amazing, spectacular, terrific, the great one, the people's champion, your host, HUD, and welcome back to another visit to the insane asylum known as WFAN.
They're coming to take me away, ha-ha, they're coming to take me away, ho-ho, hee-hee, ha-ha, to the funny fun.
And welcome back to the Baseball HUD 3, and hopefully you like this video, and hit that subscribe button. So obviously, there is more sort of going back and forth. Finally, we get some action at WFN. It has been extremely boring for the first month of these shows that they put on. Boring. Boring is not even the word. Like, comatose. You know. I mean, if you think about it, I mean, you had Craig Carton in the afternoon. I don't know what, I turn it on SNY. I have no idea what the hell they're talking about. No idea. It's not about sports. It's not about sports. And you'd think with them having, like, that pant load Chris Christie on, you'd think they'd ask him about the political situation that happened in the Mets clubhouse last year. Nope. Can't talk about that. That's been a silent thing. The media has not mentioned that with the Mets at all. She's been at least asked during a couple weeks ago. But anyway, there was this story out that there's problems in the Jets organization. Really? And that Woody Johnson is back, getting himself involved in his business. He owns the Jets. It's his business. It's his baby. And but he can't do according to some people. But the WFAN host, the sidekick of Tiki Bar, I'm going to get that right. Uneven Evan and Tiki Barber, Sean Marash, the side spud, had said that. And that was a big kerfluffle. And then that was talked about. And then later on, Carton said that that was not true, that Woody Johnson is not involved. Well, somebody has hit back, and that's Tiki Barber. Let me read it from NJ.com. Thank God they're going back and forth. WFAN host let me say this again. WFAN hosts clap back at Craig Carton's over Jets denials. Quote, "You're a useful idiot, you freaking convict." What? Hold on. Sorry. I added that last part in. Just saying. The banner lines have been drawn in Jets Nation, and they cut right through the heart of WFAN studios. The fan. One of the most fiery exchanges of the football season. Host Uneven Evan and Sean Marash found themselves defending source reporting against the Jets' official denials, with Roberts pulling no punches about who deserves the benefit of the doubt. Interesting. I didn't know Uneven was part of this. Quote, "I'll say it again. One time I called Craig Carton a useful idiot, and he left." In this case, unfortunately, again, I think you're a useful idiot. Uneven stated bluntly via YouTube. Like the Jets are not going to say, "Oh, yeah, Woody's getting handsy, right? Dan McGooey's is miserable." They're never going to admit that. That's another thing. The GM of the Jets has said you don't want to work for him. The exchange highlighted the fundamental tension between the official team statements provided the Carton and reporting by the Spud, Marash. When a team has established a long history of dysfunction, whose word should carry more weight? For the host, the answer was clear, and it wasn't the organization that has failed to make the playoffs since 2010. Quote, "When you earn respect back, we'll believe you. But until then, Craig may believe you. I don't. And if you got a problem with that, change the narrative," Roberts said, directly challenging the Jets organization to fix their reputation through actions rather than words. The debate intensified when Giants legend Tiki Barber intensified. There's nothing about Tiki. The only time Tiki gets mad is when he gets called out and he leaves the studio. Remember that time Benigno called him out and he left the studio? Tiki Barber broke down the conflicting motivations behind these competing narratives. Quote, "Just who you talk to, not who Craig talked to, because Craig's getting it from the defense. They're defending themselves. And by the way, they have every right to defend themselves," Barber explained, cutting through the noise to highlight the obvious PR strategy at work. Now, and we'll get into this. What makes this situation particularly fascinating and interesting is how the Jets' pushback against negative reporting may actually be counterproductive. Rather than letting rumors fade, their aggressive denials have only amplified the story and raised more questions. As Barber noted, the response is what gets the actions or gets people talking about it. Okay. On Tuesday's midday show, Marash reported that the Jets owner, Woody Johnson, had stripped head coach Aaron Glenn of all control and meddled with the potential hiring of Wink Martindale. It was reported that Martindale, who was the defensive coordinator when the Giants went to the playoffs in Brian Daboll's first season 2022, was locked to be the Jets' new DC, until he wasn't. Speaking on his show that same afternoon, Clark pushed back against the claim, stating, "I want to be fair to Sean Marash. I believe that Sean Marash got a phone call or somebody told him what he reported today. He didn't report back what the Jets told him. But Woody Johnson has been 100% hands off this offseason." Continued, "He has not meddled in what Aaron Glenn wants to do with his coaching staff. The Jets pivoted and hired Brian Duker, who was the past game coordinator for the Miami Dolphins." Oh boy. I mean, and this is what's going on here. I mean, the back and forth over what? It's the Jets. The Jets stink. I mentioned this a few times. The Jets are a team that needs to completely rebrand themselves, or they need to move out of the New York area. I mean, that's what they need to do. I'm being totally honest. It's like a failing business. They're a failing business. They may be making a lot of money, but they're a failing business. They're not successful in between the lines. The Jets have been a bad team for a long time. They haven't been to the postseason in a long time. They haven't been to the Super Bowl in over 50 years. They haven't had a great player. It's Curtis Martin and Darrelle Revis, but they're not a quarterback, and they haven't had anybody since Joe Namath. It's a long time ago. That's 50 years, man. And I've said this and compared this to a failing business, like a restaurant or a bar. If you are struggling with your reputation, if you're struggling with your patronage, sometimes the best thing to do is move or rebrand yourself. Change the name, do a whole renovation of the whole franchise, a whole renovation of the business. Maybe you don't call yourselves the New York Jets anymore. Maybe you call yourself something else. You change the color scheme, everything. That's something this team needs to take a long, hard look at. Like I said, it's like any other business. So many teams. I'm not a big expert on when it comes to the history of the NFL, but the history of Major League Baseball was 100 years ago. So many teams changed their names so many times because they were trying to find the elixir to change their luck. I mean, the Brooklyn Dodgers, the Los Angeles Dodgers, weren't always called the Dodgers. They were called all kinds of names, like the Robins and all these other things. And it took them forever, to figure it out. And it's a way to distract the fans a little bit, but it's also a way to sort of change narrative too. The Braves had plenty of names. They had so many names, when they were in Boston. I guess Red Robs, all kinds of crazy names. I mean, look what happened to the Indians. The Indians were named several things up until the 19 teens. The Naps. I mean, the Spiders. I mean, they were called all kinds of names. So this is not unusual for teams to do, but teams don't do that so much because of the idea of they get so much money invested. But we do see teams that do change the names over the last 30, 40 years. I mean, look at the Washington, what the hell's names? The Washington Bullets. They became the Wizards, which is a terrible name. But they thought that Washington Bullets didn't sound good. It promoted gun usage. I don't know about that. But they changed their name. And teams that moved, they changed their names too. Tennessee Titans, they were the Houston Oilers. But they moved out of the city that they were in. But just to give you an example, that's the biggest problem with the Jets too. And sometimes you maybe make that change and you never know. But so much money, like I said, so much money is invested in these brands. that's difficult to do that. But the fight with these guys at WFAN, this is about as nasty as it gets. This is not the day of Spaz Licata and the Coconut Head hanging up on Carl Banks. It's not the same. But again, this was a mild day in the day of the inmates and patients of the place known as WFAN.
They're coming to take me away, ha ha. They're coming to take me away, ho ho, hee hee, ha ha, to the funny fun.